Hey there, it's Andre with the Impulsive Thinker podcast. It's this episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. This morning this morning for me right now, and my guest, not necessarily for you because you're listening at a different time. I got here my coach. Actually, she's one of my coaches for messaging on coaching. So a coach has a coach. I think it's another episode. But anyways, I have Geeta Nadkarni from Impact with Influence joining me today to talk about visions for your company. How are you doing, Geeta? And thanks for coming.
This is such a pleasure, Andre. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome. You came out with a book called How to Live Your Vision, Manifesting Your Dream Reality in Less Than 15 Minutes a Day. Okay, less than 15 minutes a day is very good for me. I like that. We're also involved with another coaching program where we do a lot of thinking about our thinking. And I've been thinking a lot about visions. And question I have is, am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? And I think you can bring us some insight on that. And what do you mean by, what's a vision for you? What is a company vision?
So this is a great question. First of all, I think a lot of founders will set company visions and then, kind of create their life around it. And if that's your choice, because your company really is your first and foremost top priority. Again, I'm agnostic. If that's what feels right to you, then do that. But typically, I think that your company and your business is deeply integrated into and is technically a support for your life vision. So I always start when I get clients, when I coach clients through this process, we always start with what do you want your life to look like? And then, obviously add the business pieces in, and then you can do a separate, deeper dive into the fleshing out of some of the specifics for your business. But my advice would always be to start with your life first, because if you don't have enough life energy, if you don't have the right mix of rest and family and community and spirituality to support your business vision, you're running on empty.
Hold on a sec. Hold on. You're telling me everyone says, who cares about your life when you're running for business? The business owns you. That's all you got to concentrate. You're telling me I got to take care of my life first?
Yes, because if you don't, it will pretty much not 100% of the time bite you on the ass. Right? Because if you neglect your health, imagine you're going 1,000,000 miles a minute, you neglect your health, you finally hit cruise control, and then your health pulls the rug out from under you. What do you got left? Right? Now everything crumbles. The stress of your health crumbling while trying to juggle all the balls of your business, that's going to just create so much suffering in the long term. And I don't know about you, but that suffering isn't part of my vision for success. So I'm trying to, when I think about, okay, so what would be the right way to go about it? What are my actual true priorities? Health has got to be number one, because if you don't have health, you can't really show up for anything else. It becomes a primary preoccupation. And then, you'll want to have probably I was going to say relationship, but my number one relationship is with spirit. So it's spirituality technically would take even a higher seat than any relationships, including your spouse and your children, if you have any. Because if you don't have a great relationship with yourself, so I think of spirit, you could think of it as God, the universe, yourself, whichever way, it's all of those things combined. If you don't have a great relationship with yourself and your spirit, then again, who do you check in with? How do you check for alignment? How do you know you're taking the right path? There's a million different ways you could go. How do you set your GPS if you don't know your true sense of destination? And that's one of the things I discuss in depth in the book, which is a very, very quick read. So I wrote it down Sullivan style, sort of it's 8 chapters. They're very short. You can read the entire freaking thing. And some people have read it in 2 hours. I'm a slower reader, so it took me 3 hours, But one of the things I get into really deep in the book is when you're setting your vision. Here's the thing. A lot of us high achievers, we have mentors. We have people we look up to. We have business leaders that we want to emulate, right? We come from families that maybe, like my dad won a Guinness World Record, just to give you a sense of the level of type A overachieverness that I come from, right? So I'm the family underachiever. And so there's so much, the template that we've set for ourselves really is very intense. And what can happen is that if you don't cultivate a really deep relationship with yourself, you can end up chasing goals that aren't actually true to you. So you were asking me, like, am I doing it wrong? I feel like this is one of the ways that a lot of us driven folks do it, quote unquote, wrong. Does this make sense?
Right. What I heard was make sure the vision is your vision, not what someone else expects it to be, or like a mentor that you have that's kind of in line with them.
Exactly. And the way that you do that is you check in with the feelings of it. And again, I've given you a very deep dive, step-by-step process for this in the book. But if we were to summarize it here, it's all about, so let's say you want, Andre, do you have a goal, like something that you're like, oh, in my vision, I have this, I'm experiencing this. Can you give me an example?
The big goal right now is to create a high achieving ADHD entrepreneur community.
Okay.
Of like-brained people with the same struggles of a company and ADHD.
Got it. So you've got this goal of having a community, right? Yeah. Now, to some extent, that goal is a little bit flu, right? It's not super clear. You don't know how many people are in the community. There are no clear objective metrics. Again, I call it
vague. It's a very vague vision,
which is great, actually, I don't mind that. And in fact, sometimes depending on your personality type, I know for me, a little bit of vagueness is actually much more beneficial than being very, very specific. And I know that flies in the face of what everybody says about goals. You're supposed to have them be smart and measurable and blah, 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 and all this stuff. I think when you're setting goals with your team, where there are other stakeholders involved, then yes, that specificity is important. And if you're like me, where you're extremely ambitious, but then if you don't get all the way there, if you're one of those people that sets a like ridiculous BHAG type goal, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and then you get like 95% of the way there, if you beat yourself up for the 5%, if that's your personality type, it is mine, then I find a little bit of vagueness or setting underachieving goals is actually more beneficial, because then I'm more in the gain than I am in the gap. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So you're kind of setting yourself up for success by not having an over defined specific.
Exactly.
I think that's a very valid point for the listener. Like our ADHD brain, we can't get stuck in the specific, or when we make this decision that this has to be, it's an all or nothing. It's either all of it or nothing. And then we really get stuck and get too dedicated and too driven to get that. And then we sometimes lose track of what's going on, or, if it has to change because of like if your interest changes or the opportunity is not there, then we can lose track and we're chasing something that we shouldn't.
Exactly. And that's why one of the main things that one of the reasons I allow things to remain somewhat vague, I will let the specifics. So let me be clear about which parts are vague and which parts are extremely clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there is a formula to this. The specifics in terms of like a beach house with X number of rooms, or where the beach house is, or whatever, like those things can stay vague because it doesn't bother me, because I know that whatever I come up with, the universe probably has a better plan for me that I can't see because of my, the smallness of my ego. What I am crystal freaking clear about is, how does that outcome make me feel? What is the feeling I'm chasing? Because the beach house is really just currency in a way. The beach house is the quote unquote $1 million that I have to make in order to feel rich, right? Like I tell myself, when I have the beach house, then I'll feel X. So a good exercise that you can do here is, if you have a car, a beach house, a community, a particular revenue goal, whatever it is you've got in your mind as your goal, ask yourself why. And ask yourself, what is it that I want to feel? And when I say feel, that's two things. It's an emotional kind of feeling. So is it joy? Is it a sense of fulfillment? Is it a sense of coming home? What is that emotional feeling? And then what, if any, physical sensations come to mind? So typically you can anchor into this feeling, and this is a very powerful manifesting tool. You can anchor into the feeling by using your body. Most of us use just our brain. And then like the rest of the body is like this vestigial organ that we just drag around. which, I mean, if you want to do it that way, that's fine, but then you're leaving 98% of your power on the table. So why not plug into the battery that is meant to power your thinking and use it? So the way that I like to do it is I say, okay, so if I have a beach house in my vision, which I do, that beach house gives me a sense of deep connection. It's the place that I take my friends and family. It's where I spoil my friends, where I bring them out and we do like a girls only retreat around my birthday, let's say. It's a place where, you know, the vision that I have is I'm sitting on this white shag rug and I'm looking through photo albums and I'm celebrating and being great and practicing gratitude for my life. I'm like reliving my life and being like, wow, I have created so much joy. So the feeling I have is that of that richness, that abundance, that sense of connection to the people I love. That's ultimately what this beach house represents to me. So there are two things that come out of this now. First of all, now that I know what my end goal is, now that I know the way that I genuinely want to get paid, I want to get paid in feelings of richness and abundance and connection, etc. I can start paying myself in little increments today, right here with 0 beach houses in my portfolio, right? I can start to say, okay, what are all the different ways that I can give myself these experiences in the present? And by fueling that experience, I'm bringing myself closer to that pinnacle of that peak experience. I'm practicing the neural pathways of having these feelings. Mm-hmm. And what that helps me do is, and I've had so many experiences about this, it helps me recognize, you know, when something comes out of left field, where a magic doorway opens, where just like the weirdest coincidence happens, some random person falls into your life out of nowhere and makes you this crazy offer. And you're like, should I say yes? Should I say no? Sometimes what will happen when you practice it this way is that person will say something and it will immediately ignite those feelings, like the beach house feelings in your body. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm onto something. Like, I need to say yes to this. And it doesn't necessarily make analytical or logical sense, but I need to follow this breadcrumb. I need to go wherever it's taking me. And that's how I've experienced so much joyful, effortless, non-suffering success. So I'm leaning into this way of going about it more.
Holy crap. That was a mouthful. That was a lot there, but to me, that was quite profound. Like, I challenged the listener now. Like, the one thing that really hit me, sucker punched me on this one, the left field scenario. It's the emotion of the goal or the end goal. I have never put an emotion to a goal. So when I got to that point, it's just like, done, on to the next. And that emotional piece is, I've always missed that. So is that a good way that I can gauge if it's a true part of my vision?
Yes.
If I connect the emotion to it and I'm looking for it, and then, I don't know, just picking out a name out of random, like you know, if I looked up to Richard Branson, that if it's kind of like that vision doesn't emote any emotions, fancy word, emote, then it's not mine.
Correct. Because this way you're checking in, and you know, some people are uncomfortable with this verbiage, but you're checking in basically to see, is this your soul's journey? So there is an element of surrender. So I find that when you really want something too much, when you've got that single-minded, all or nothing focus on something, for some of us, it breaks it. It breaks the joy of the chase. It breaks the rest of your life. It breaks a lot of really precious things. So even then, ultimately, if you achieve the goal, it comes at such a high cost that you're like, what the hell did I do? Right. And then when you end up in that now you start to distrust your motives, you start to distrust your goals. It sets up this really terrible chain reaction of self-distrust. So to avoid that, here's what I've come to realize is that you have to both hold the desire for something, which is why in my book, I talk about the want practice. So Dan Sullivan, actually, coincidentally, which I did not realize until much later, also has a want practice. He doesn't do the emotions part, but this is the part that I do that I think has really been beneficial for me and for my clients is you say what you want, But then you say, okay, what is the end result, the end emotion that I think I can only have when I achieve XYZ,
Yeah,
whatever that
there's
is.
no emotion discussion in his tools.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, but I find that doing that allows me to be crystal clear on what I'm actually chasing. And it allows me to take the pressure off and give me back my sense of control and creativity, because I'm not so desperate. It takes me out of desperation when I'm not there yet, right? Because what happens is, so let's say I want that feeling of joy and connection and gratitude for my life. Well, guess what? I can give that to myself right here, right now. I can go on my phone and look through images of me giving birth to my children and images of, vacations that we've taken. I can give myself parts of that experience today. I can start living the vision today.
Yeah.
So that fills up my cup. It makes me less desperate because I'm now not waiting. I'm not starving until I hit that goal to feel those feelings. I can feel them right here, right now. So now I can hold that vision. I can hold the end result in my mind kind of peacefully and curiously and with interest rather than desperation, which of course leaves my brain much more open to noticing the signs, the coincidences, the synchronicities, etc., that bring them in.
Yeah. So like just to bring a little context too, like what Geeta was referring to with Dan Sullivan's want list is he's got a concept in a little book, Ambition Series book, about how get what you want. If you don't have to justify what you want, if you want it, go for it, and don't be sorry about it or justify it to yourself or other people. Now, the only difference I hear from Geeta is you're doing the same thing, but you're attaching an emotional element to it that makes it more real and actually more visceral.
More visceral.
And then also at the same time, it'll help you make the proper decision. Like I've never tied, like, so if you want to go back to my example here, the community, I've never really tied emotion to it. Logically, analytically, I know what emotions I kind of want, but I never tied an emotion to it. So like to me, it's community, acceptance, understanding, and not ashamed or what's the other word there? The
othered, outside.
And not feel, and feel comfortable. Yeah, it's more, feel included, but at the same time, not ashamed of the symptoms or have to justify or explain it. Right. So if I can be in a space of not having to explain or justify, there's some sort of calm and understanding.
Yes. So now I'm going to take you a step further, Andre, and I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you to feel in your body. So if you were standing in a room with these people, if you were sitting in a room with these people around a table, how would your body feel when you're in that place where you're included and you're accepted and everybody feels connected and joyful and finally home? What does that feel like in your body? Where do you feel it?
I'm actually feeling up in the upper chest and shoulders, electrified, just full of energy, just buzzing.
So now you know that is actually your end goal. So the thing you practice on the daily is feeling that in your body, imagining situations that give you that. What this does is it strengthens a neural pathway that creates that visceral experience for you. What that's also doing is because you're practicing it, what will end up happening, especially if you do this daily, is that by default, your creativity will seek out other instances, other visuals that go with that exact feeling.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Now you're connected to more opportunity for this exact emotion, this exact end goal in your life. You don't have to wait anymore.
That's huge, because I think a lot of the listeners are listening who are ADHD. I guarantee the majority of the listeners, and myself included, is my whole life, the way I feel and want to feel about things has been neglected or pushed away as not normal, not important. So it's almost kind of one of the things, why should I feel or care for my emotions if no one else does? But I think this is very important. What Geeta's promoting here is, if no one else cares, make sure you care.
Yes.
And tie the emotions to a vision, and I think you'll get there a lot easier. I think we'll be a lot easier on ourselves, because if we can get that emotion, it might be a hiccup today, but it's not that bad because I can still feel it. It's still real. I think that's a good way for us to be easier on ourselves with it.
Yes. And if anyone's listening, because I know this was one of my hangups about this process at the very beginning, if anyone's listening and thinking, well, if I take the pressure off though, then I'll just, sit on the couch and eat ice cream and watch Netflix and do nothing. Because I remember this was one of my biggest fears. And and you know what? That's funny, because that is the kind of thinking that is a compensation or a reaction. So if you're the people who worry about that are people who are typically flirting with burnout. So if you're flirting with burnout right now, then the thing, when you imagine like, oh, what does freedom look like? It looks like Netflix on the couch, because you're like, that is the opposite of this. I'm so tired. I need to just stop and chill and do nothing.
Yeah.
But when you're actually in balance, you'll last about 3 days on the couch. After that, you're going to be bored out of your skull, and your creativity will kick in, and you will want to create something, because that's what healthy humans do. Healthy humans create. We're all creators. And so one of the things that is really important when you're setting your vision, and that's why I'm so like maniacal about insisting on the emotions piece, is sometimes what will happen is if you've come from if you've had a rough childhood, and I imagine if you've had ADHD and it's undiagnosed or nurtured, then by definition, your life will have been somewhat rough, right? Because there's a denial of your sense of self, there's a denial of your experience. You don't fit, you're a square peg in a round hole, etc. And so what that's going to do is sometimes it will put pressure on you unconsciously. I just want to be clear about that. Consciously, you're not choosing this, but unconsciously, you're going to want to move away from something. So another great tool, and I use this in coaching all the time, is I'll ask somebody, so what do you want? And 9 times, and Andre, I'm sure you've heard me say this on calls, people will say what they want, and almost always, like if you're in that compensation denial piece, you'll be like, I want to stop being broke. I want to stop doing something. I basically don't want a state anymore. So think about that. You're basically moving forward while looking only in the rearview mirror. You're looking at what you're running away from. And what this does is it does not, subconsciously, you will not be allowed to put your foot on the gas, because you can't drive fast if you're only looking behind. Your subconscious will protect you from any kind of momentum.
Which puts a foot on the brake at the same time.
Correct. And so you want to make sure that you're clear, that you're not creating something out of compensation. So a really good trick for this, and I talk about this in my Impact with Clarity program, which we can talk about if you feel like.
We'll talk about it at the end.
Is one of the tools is to empty yourself out and ground yourself. Andre, you've had a lot of fun with these exercises, I know, on our calls. Andre is totally our group jokester, where we imagine, so there are lots of different ways to ground. You can look up grounding online. You can, if you're into yoga, meditation, you probably already have a practice. One of my favorite ways is to imagine like a golden kind of column of light going from my bum essentially into the center of the earth. So if I'm sitting, then it's like where my body hits the ground and it's going into the center of the earth. And then anything that I don't want, any worries, anything, any perturbations, preoccupations, I just drop them down the column and I give them back to the earth. And I'm like, you know what, God, take it. I don't want it. I don't know how to deal with this. Take it back.
Yeah. Mindfulness, they call that visualization.
Yeah. So one of the most important things to do before you sit and create your vision is to ground and get back to a state of openness and innocence, of what William Whitecloud would call this innocence. He actually has you visualize yourself as a newborn baby. So it's like you go on this journey and you walk across a field and you go to this like beautiful building, and inside the building is a crib, and in the crib is a baby, and the baby is you. And then you kind of inhabit the body of the baby and you imagine the world where you know nothing. There are no preconceived notions. No one has taught you anything yet. There's nothing to do but be who you are, want what you want, ask for what you need. You just are. And you're able to see the world as it truly is with no filters put on top of it.
Right.
if you can come to your vision with that sense of innocence, that sense of openness, then what you're going to end up seeing is what your soul desires for you, not what a mentor wants or your parents always told you should want, or your spouse wants you to want, et cetera, et cetera. So those things.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing, especially if you lived undiagnosed for a lot of your life, you actually become a character that's favorable to others, and it's not completely yours to live or your wants. And I think it's very important for the listeners to understand this. Make sure the vision is what you want and what you want to feel. We're running a bit of time here, Gita, but one thing I do want to ask you is it important to share and be excited about our visions?
Yes and no. Yes, share it, but share it only with people that you know for a fact are going to support you. Don't share it with people who are going to poo-poo your vision, who have a vested interest in you staying with the status quo, which might include spouses, by the way, especially in your early days
business
of entrepreneurship.
Partners, even friends.
Business partners,
I've had to leave friends behind because they didn't want to grow with me.
Exactly. So you want to make sure that you're doing a good job of handpicking the allies that you want to share this with. Share it with people who are safe. And I think that's why, Andre, this community that you're building is going to be just manna from heaven, because here's the thing, sharing it is of so much benefit, because when somebody else sees it and it's real, it becomes real to you in a whole new way. So having this community where you can come and share these deepest, most vulnerable parts of you, like the things that you want before you have them, like there's nothing more vulnerable to an adult than that, to be like, I really want this thing and I don't have it and I have no clue how to get it. For someone else to hold that space for you and look at it with you and say, yeah, I see this for you. Oh, that's so powerful and juicy, and it magnifies your ability to have it. And I really think that that's huge.
And then for the ADHD brain, make sure that these visions and goals are written down by hand. It engages a different part of your brain. When you do the typing, there's a lot of studies out there that doesn't engage, it doesn't make it real. Write it out by hand, put it on the wall, put it somewhere, so now it becomes real.
And can I add a second? Like review it, read it every day, like literally have a practice. It doesn't take you long. It will take you a minute, 60 seconds. Just put a reminder on your phone, have it on your phone if you need it, but
put it on your mirror in the bathroom.
Put on your mirror in the bathroom, read it every day, just while you brush your teeth. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be super focused or present, but the repetition and the reminder and the refocusing, especially for ADHD brains that kind of like ping, 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 like your ideas have ideas, right?
Yeah.
This can help focus you on the end result. And then all the ideas will start to fall in line. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. Where can we find your book?
So you can find my book on Amazon, anywhere in the world. We have a pretty link that's easier to remember.
Which will be in the show notes.
Which will be in the show notes, which is fantastic. The book itself is called How to Live Your Vision. So if you just look up How to Live Your Vision on Amazon, you'll find it. It's also on Audible, and I read it, and there are a few extra little bits and pieces on Audible. I know ADHD brains don't love reading. So I know that sometimes audio can be more beneficial. So if you want that, it's definitely available for you. And then if you want tools to help you ground, and if you want tools to help you kind of step out of this wounded state that a lot of us are in, especially if you've had an undiagnosed condition your whole life, there's going to be a part of you that's really pissed off. There's going to be a part of you that's resentful. There's going to be a part of you that maybe feels helpless, and so on and so forth. Everybody has their favorite states that they default to. If you want to have a proven, reliable process that's practical, that you can use, I've made some of the most powerful tools from our main program, Impact with Influence, available for almost no money in Impact with Clarity. And I say almost no money because right now we're offering it for 70% off. So we'll put that link. I'll give Andre a special link if you can put that on the show.
Yeah, 70% off. You said it's 197.
Yeah, it's 197.
Wow. Like that's a lot of like I don't upsell people. I don't give credit to a lot of people that's not deserved, but that's a steal. Even if you don't think it's worth it, it's still a steal. There's a lot of power behind there and the tools, and then the clarity is definitely something you guys bring. But it's real clarity. It's not just a hokey pokey, make you feel good and,
Exactly.
tap, tap on the bum, hooray team. It's, you get in there in deep. So I highly recommend it. Impact with
Thank you.
clarity, definitely true to its name. So 3 gems I want us to end with.
Mm.
Suffering is not a vision of my success. That's what you said. And that hit me right away because a lot of ADHD people, especially undiagnosed, are trying to fit in. There's a lot of suffering, and we believe we have to suffer to succeed. And we got to get over that mindset. Make sure it's your vision and tie it with the emotion. Like I learned something today. I guess I missed that in the course, Geeta, but make sure it's your
We
vision.
tried, Andre, we tried.
But tying that emotion to it, to get that feeling, it makes it a lot more visceral, more real. And I think if I get to that emotional state or feeling state, I'm going to celebrate it more than before, going, yeah, good for you. Off we go on the next. And the last one is the end goal is the feeling of the vision.
Exactly. So you know what you're really playing for, and it may come to you in a completely unexpected form. So that allows you to be open to magic, right? Like the universe might deliver what you're looking for in a form that you did not know to wish for. And how foolish would you be if you were like, no, I just want that small thing that I first came up with, and I'm super focused on it, and abundance is biting me on the ankle and I'm trying to kick it off. Which I see a lot of people doing. So I don't want to make that mistake. So I developed this process for myself to just make sure that I'm always playing for the right goal.
Well, thank you, Geeta. I really appreciate your time sharing your vision about making visions. I know it brought a lot of clarity to me and for the listeners, and I'd like to hear from you, the listener. What are your visions, and what did you think about the emotional tie to a vision? And I'd like to hear from you, and you can send me an email at questions@theimpulsivethinker.com, which is also in the show notes. Geeta, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, Andre. Bye.